Just say first, good evening, and welcome to the 19th Sentinel Awards. Thank you so much for coming. You look good. You look really good. Some of you haven't cleaned up. Those who have look fabulous. It's a truth universally acknowledged, but in secret, that at a glamorous occasion like this, place is pretty amazing, isn't it? I bet some of you haven't been before. We're thrilled to be here. We've been here for the last few years. But on a glamorous night like this, the Hollywood secret is that everyone would prefer to be in their pajamas at home. And so our promise to you is that if you want to have your head hit the pillow at 10, we're going to do our best to make that possible. My name is Marty Kaplan. I'm the director of the Norman Lear Center. And if you like brand hierarchies, here's how it goes. The Norman Lear Center is part of USC. It's in the Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. And within the Norman Lear Center are various projects, and the project that we've had that is the longest standing project and which we celebrate tonight is Hollywood Health and Society. And there are some people here tonight and others watching the live stream on Facebook who I am glad that they could hear your applause, because without them we could not be doing the work that we do. So I would like to thank, and perhaps another round when I'm done, the SCAN Foundation, N Square, the California Healthcare Foundation, the CDC's Act Against AIDS, the SoCal Clinical and Translational Science Institute, Respectability, and an anonymous donor. Please join me in thanking them. There's another donor who is first among equals, whom I also want to thank, and that is the namesake of the Norman Lear Center. I've just destroyed the suspense of that. We are thrilled and grateful for his generosity, and we're especially pleased that his name and what his name means in the entertainment industry and American society is so consistent with the values that we have, that we are thrilled that we're able to have his name. We're grateful, and another round of thanks, please. So the mission of the Norman Lear Center is to study and shape the impact of media and entertainment on society. We study, we're a research organization, we shape, and tonight is in part the shaping, the attempt to be of service to the industry, and above all, we believe that media and entertainment does indeed have an impact on society. Stories matter. Stories make a difference. They do something. They affect what people know, what they feel, even how they behave. Storytellers matter too. This evening I've been talking to a lot of storytellers, and maybe you've been in conversations like this already this evening, and certainly in other occasions. People have said to each other, "How you doing?" And the answer in most cases is something like, "Great, except, for everything going on out there." I want to address that. When your head hits the pillow, will you make the mistake of looking at the news? Will you scroll through Twitter? Will you find out what's going on? There's a story in the New York Times Sunday magazine just this past Sunday about Deborah Eisenberg, a brilliant short story writer. And she tells, there's a story about an artist who can't sleep. She goes to her doctor, the doctor suggests pills. And she says, I'm afraid they'll blunt my affect. And the doctor says, well, in that case, your best bet is to figure out why you're not sleeping. And she says, what's to figure out? I'm hurtling through time, strapped to an explosive device, my life. Plus, it's beginning to look like a photo finish, me first or the world. It's not hard to figure out why I'm not sleeping. What I can't figure out is why everybody else isn't sleeping. Well, the doctor says, of course, everyone else is sleeping because everyone else is taking pills. But for those of us here, for those of us we know, everything else, everything going on out there relates to everything going on right here. What you do, what you storytellers do, make a difference out there. In the stories that you tell, truth matters. Truth and facts and science matter. In the stories that you tell, decency and empathy matter. In the stories you tell, dignity and integrity and honesty matter. And not just in the stories you tell, truth matters to you. Decency matters to you. Dignity matters to you. So what you do and what you do does and who you are, that's what we're honoring tonight. Everything that we do has a team. No one gets anywhere alone. And I am thrilled that leading the team for Hollywood Health and Society is someone that many of you know her team as well. I am thrilled to have her as a colleague and collaborator. Please join me in welcoming the Director of Hollywood Health and Society, Kate Fulb.
Wow, everybody does look pretty good. What a tough act to follow. I'm just going to stick to the business and not even try. Thank you, Marty. And welcome, everybody. I'm really glad you're all here to celebrate with us. And I'm so proud to be part of Hollywood Health and Society. I tell everybody I see, and there are many people in the audience that can vouch for me, that I have the best job in the world. I get to work with really, really smart people like him and like the scientists and the medical experts that we offer as service to you all. And I get to work with really, really creative people like all of you. And the best part of all is I get to watch TV with no guilt at all. So here's my quick commercial for Hollywood Health and Society, for those of you who may not know us. If you're looking for accurate information on health, medicine, science, safety, security, pretty much anything at this point, we're here to help you. With just one call or email, operators standing by, we can connect you to, I'm glad somebody laughed at that. The younger my audiences get, the more they don't laugh at that joke. So thank you for whoever that was. Anyway, with one call or email, we can connect you to experts from the front lines of just about any issue so that you can do what you do best, which is tell great stories. And guess what? The cost, it's all for free. Can't get better than that, right? So tonight's honorees have undergone 2 rounds of judging. First, for accuracy by medical, health, and security experts, and then for production and entertainment value by entertainment industry professionals. Some of our judges are in the audience tonight, so I'll ask, will our judges and experts, if we have any of our experts too, please stand for a round of applause. They're really what we really are grateful for, because they do offer their services pro bono to support your storylines in the interest of accuracy. So thank you to all of our judges and our medical and health experts. I'd also like to recognize an amazing staff and team at Hollywood Health and Society and the Norman Lear Center who pull it off every year. I don't know how they do it, but they do. First and foremost, Armane Koroyan, who is our senior project manager. And then I'm going to give you a list, and you can applause at the end. Russ DeVita, Elliot Scher, Roberta Kruger, Melissa Gattuso, Erica Rosenthal. I want to see if she can spell fast enough. Camille Saucier, Zach Gonzalez-Landis, Scott McGibbon, Kristen Young, and Tony Pham. Let's see, where is she? So, in addition to applauding our interpreter here, big applause for the staff for pulling together this evening. Okay, so this is how the evening's gonna go. We're gonna show a clip from each honoree, and then we're gonna present the award. So when your name is called for your award, come up these steps, or there's a ramp off to your left. Come up onto the stage, receive your award. We'll take a few photos. You can say a few words, and then you can return to your seat the same way. So either down those steps or back down that ramp. Okay, everybody got it? Directions? Good. Okay, here we go. All right. Well, where else do we begin but with Sofia the First from Disney Junior. So this is a great episode showing how people with disabilities have many, many abilities as well. Let's take a look at a clip from the episode, The Lost Pyramid. We gotta go home and watch the rest of that episode. I wanna know what the treasure is. Okay, so one of our judges, I have to quote, after watching this episode, expressed how wonderful it was to have a blind character in a princess world, and especially that she's their guide. It gives me cold chills, I'm sorry. Either that or the air conditioning's on. So here to present the Sentinel Award to Sofia the First, I'm happy to introduce 2 princesses, Darcy Rose Burns as the voice of Princess Amber, and Harley Graham as the voice of Princess Cleo. Come on up.
Hi. Teaching love and showing acceptance is what Sofia the First does. With every episode, they showed that there's not one way to be human, or in the case of our show, mermaid or romkin or some other mythical creature. It shows that when we work together for one and all, we're stronger than we know. I am so proud to be a part of a show that strives to make the world a more loving and inclusive place for the generation that it entertains. Thank you.
I think I speak for both Darcy and I when I say it's an honor to be a part of a show that's so devoted to the diversity of its characters and really understands the importance of representation of different kinds of people, especially towards children. So I'm happy to present the Sentinel Award for Vision Impairment to Sofia the First.
Here to accept the award is writer Matt Hoverman and story editor Michael Stern.
think if you knew my parents, you would know that there was an additional round of judging before this episode was submitted. I remember the day I realized my older sister Carol was developmentally disabled. I came home from my 5th grade math class and tried to explain negative numbers to her. "Hey Carol, what's 6 minus 10? I asked. She just couldn't comprehend the question. "You can't do that," she said. "You can't do it." "Oh, yes, you can," I said, suddenly painfully aware that Carol was limited in a way I wasn't, but secretly proud that I had passed her. 6 minus 10 is 0. Of course, I was completely wrong on the math, which is why I became a writer. But at that moment, I saw what my sister struggled with, and I wanted to help her. The thing is, I couldn't do enough. Growing up, she was picked on, made fun of, lonely. And while I loved her and we would play Stratego together on her bedroom floor, I couldn't give her what she really wanted: friends. That's why when Michael hired me on Sofia the First, I just had to pitch an episode featuring Disney's first princess with a disability. For the kids like my sister out there, and the other kids who might not know how to handle someone a little different. Together, our writing staff came up with Princess Cassandra, an Indiana Jones-like adventurer who just happens to be blind. She's brave, accomplished, funny, and most importantly, she's surrounded by friends. Thank you. Cassandra was brought to life by Sofia's brilliantly talented team, including our show creator Craig Gerber, EP and director Jamie Mitchell, producer Clay Renfro, head writer Michael Stern, who wrote the beautiful song for the episode with John Kavanaugh, and our fearless executives Nancy Cantor, Joe D'Ambrosia, and Cassie Brower. In closing, I'd just like to read a tweet we received from one of our young viewers who watches the show with the help of audio description. Hola. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for Princess Cassandra. Through this episode, you said, "I see you." I cried because of how I related to her. When Cassandra sings about feeling fenced in by what you can't see, well, that's exactly how I felt since I lost most of my remaining vision due to a second battle with glaucoma. It wasn't until hearing the song "Come to Your Senses with Me" that I knew I wasn't alone. What we create matters. On behalf of the entire Sofia team, thank you for this honor.
Okay. They didn't follow directions, though. They're supposed to come up here to the front. Just saying. Okay, where am I now? All right. Some of you who might have been here last year may remember that Sesame Street received a Sentinel Award for their introduction of a new character, Julia, who has autism. Well, Julia and Sesame Street have continued to help young viewers understand that our differences can actually enhance our lives and bring new perspectives. This episode, Shape Hunt, depicts the unique way Julia sees the world as she and her friends look for shapes around the neighborhood. Let's take a look. I'm happy to present a Sentinel Award to Sesame Street for helping young children understand a little more about people with autism and that our differences don't have to divide us. Here to accept the award is director Nadine Zistrel.
Thank you, everybody. I always feel so honored to accept anything on behalf of Sesame Street, 40, almost 50 years of doing things the right way. But I think part of what's interesting about watching the show is it looks so simple, and we don't realize all the work that goes into doing it right. And so I thought I'd maybe just share with you guys like a couple of the 5 steps that went into that simple piece of content So we started with a curriculum seminar where we found out about autism and really shaped a curriculum that could define what we were saying about autism and how we were going to say it. And then we had advisors along every single step of the way commenting on the scripts. In fact, on the day we shot that, there was an advisor on set who was literally talking to me at every minute about how we should portray Julia and how we should do it. In fact, the casting of Julia, we had worked really hard to make sure it was someone who understood the issues. So the actress who's playing Julia is the parent of somebody who has autism, which is awesome, but also she's not an actress. So there we were kind of working through what that meant. And so, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. And you make a show, and then you remember, you know what, it really matters. Like all those little steps that went into making the show made the show so much better. And you're not just making a show, you're defining the way that kids, millions of kids, see their world and understand the friends that they have around them. And so I feel so incredibly blessed to be a part of the community of people at Sesame Street who every day try and shape the world so it can be as good as it can be. So thank you.
In the ABC comedy Speechless, we get to know a typical American family with 3 typical American children, one of whom happens to have cerebral palsy. Let's watch a clip from the winning episode in which JJ and his appointed voice Kenneth decide, as one does, to dive into the world of online dating. I'm happy to present a Sentinel Award to Speechless, and here to accept the award are executive story editor and writer Carrie Rosen and writer Zach Anner.
I got up on stage without falling off, so that's already a win. I'd like to thank my parents who not only gave me a sense of humor, but they also gave me cerebral palsy. And I feel like that's been great for my career.
And I want to thank my brother, who is nonverbal like JJ, and he's the reason I'm here. And also my mom, whose dream of being able to have a little time to go to jury duty inspired another plot point in this episode.
And, I'd also like to thank the entire Speechless Writers Room, full of geniuses, and a few of my other frequent collaborators outside of Speechless, my brother Brad, and Jillian Grassi, who is here with me tonight. And, you know, growing up, I didn't see anyone like me on TV. And thanks in large part to Speechless, we now have a voice and representation, and people with cerebral palsy are finally getting a chance to tell their stories. And I would love to thank Scott Silveri, the creator of Speechless and showrunner, who showed us not only that inclusion matters, but it can also make damn great television. Thank you so much.
There's no awards event like this. And what you're feeling in your hearts brings us together, and we're so honored to be able to honor what you're seeing. From the heartwarming to the harrowing, nuclear weapons have been front and center this year. I don't need to remind you, from the Iran deal to North Korea to one of the reasons you're not sleeping. And the CBS show Madam Secretary gives us a harrowing glance at the possible consequences of a nuclear attack. Here's a clip. Everything you just heard is 100% accurate. Here to present the Sentinel Award for Madam Secretary, I'm thrilled to be able to introduce the gentleman who plays President Conrad Dalton, who is also a terrific guy, and I'm thrilled he's here. Please welcome Keith Carradine.
Thank you. When I first got involved with this show, I was impressed with the accuracy of the writing, and I was so thrilled to be a part of a show that was going to address the issues of our time from a albeit fictitious point of view, but dealing with the issues that we are all facing on a regular basis. Now, when we began the show, the world was a little different. Barack Obama was still our president. Things have changed since then. And we have become a show that some people like to think of as rather more aspirational than perhaps we were before. That we are now presenting an example of maybe how things might become again in terms of the system and how it works and how we speak with one another and the level of civility with which we as a society address our problems. And I've always been impressed with our writers' uncanny ability to address certain issues in an almost prescient way. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, we had an episode that dealt with Greek debt. And the Sunday evening when that episode aired, the Greek debt crisis was peaking. And ever since, I've really wondered about you, Barbara and David, and all of you writers, and your ability to sort of tap into the zeitgeist and address these things in a way that becomes sort of frighteningly relevant right at the moment that the show is airing. I'm happy to say that the airing of this episode was not quite as prescient. However, the issues that it addresses are just as relevant. And I am so proud to be a part of a show that does this in the way that it does, with such insight and technical accuracy. I couldn't be more proud to be a part of a television series. Without further ado, I would like to present this award to Barbara Hall, our creator and executive producer, and David Gray, our executive producing writer. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for this important award. Because of the important nature of the work you do here at Hollywood Health and Society, we really do understand what a great honor this is. I just want to say a few words before I hand this over to my writing partner, David Gray, because I think it's important to make it clear how passionately and ardently and vociferously I did not want to do this episode. David would bring it up to me every couple months, and I would say no, because I would say, I don't think I want to scare the crap out of America right now. I feel like they have enough to deal with. But somewhere along the line in our discussion, we talked about de-alerting and getting the nukes off the hair trigger system. And then I realized, oh, I could see a way to do it. We'll just scare the crap out of America for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then the rest of the episode would be about the remedy. So once I could give our characters something to move toward, I felt that we could do it. Although I will say I had nightmares every single night when I was writing this. But all is forgiven because David is right. This was an important episode to do. So now I hand you over to the person who's really responsible for us doing this, David.
Well, thank you, Keith and Barbara. This is particularly meaningful to me because Barbara gave me my first job in television, gave me my first break on a show called Joan of Arcadia 15 years ago. Yes, woohoo. And she's been my mentor, my colleague, and my friend for all these years. And to this day, I still lean in when she starts talking about writing or producing. I'd also like to thank the writers, all the writers on the Madam Secretary staff, Matt Ward, Joy Gregory, Keith Eisner, Lila Oliver, Alex Maggio, Christy Korzek, Matt Chester. I think we have, Everyone says they have the best writing staff in the business. I can tell you this is the best writing staff that I've ever worked with, the most talented, and we're together in the trenches every day. They're pretty nice trenches, but still, we work hard. And I want to give a little credit, an extra shout out to Joy Gregory, who, as I would push Barbara, but then eventually I thought to myself, maybe we just shouldn't do this. Maybe Barbara's doing me a favor. Joy would say, no, it's an important issue, and it could be really freaking exciting. So I'm glad we did it, and thanks, Joy, and all the writers. Also want to give a quick thank you, shout out to our incredible cast and crew, led by the amazing Taya Leone and Tim Daly. This episode was enormous. It was when you show with complete accuracy every step that happens when a launch is detected through ordering or retaliation. It's a big episode. This was by far our most expensive episode, and everyone really stepped up. Our entire crew, led by Lori McCreary, Sam Hoffman, and Eric Stoltz in New York, were amazing. I thought I was going to have to choose between, do I get Air Force One in the episode or Marine One? And we had both. So really, thanks so much to them. And a special shout out to Keith Carradine. It's not only for coming here tonight, but also it's tough to play the president, to have that gravitas. But to actually portray convincingly and terrifyingly making the decision to launch is a pretty amazing thing, and he brought amazing verisimilitude to the episode. I have to thank the Hollywood Health and Society and Roberta Kruger. They provided us with the most incredible experts. And I'm going to go through their names real quick and their titles, which just their titles might make my speech run way too long. But Bruce Blair is the foremost expert in the world on de-alerting. And he's renowned. Most people think of him as the foremost expert. He is the co-founder of Global Zero, a research scholar at Program 1 on Science and Global Society at Princeton University's Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs. That's Bruce Blair. Secretary Ernest Moniz, former Secretary of Energy under Obama and co-chair and CEO of the Nuclear Threat Initiative, gave us lots of great information on this topic. Joe Cirincione, the president of Plowshares, might have been the first to mention it in our writer's room, just when Roberta set up a visit for him to come say hi. So that sort of piqued our interest. And Joe said to me, when I called him and said we were going to do the episode and I picked his brain for ideas, he said to me, look, I keep my cell phone by my bed. Call me anytime over the weekend. I mean it, anytime. Jeffrey Lewis, professor at the James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies at Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey. I mean, you have to work long and hard to get a title like that. And also Meredith Horowski, the campaign director for Global Zero, but an incredible expert on this subject. Also at Glover Park Group, our consultants, our regular week-to-week consultants on the show, Adam Blickstein, Max Gleichman, and Liz Allen, who, when we first mentioned the idea of doing this episode, weren't terribly bullish on it. There were a bunch of Pentagon people they work with, and they said, oh, de-alerting? Nah, no one cares about that, no big deal. But they provided some great counterpoints, because we always like to give two sides to the story, even though we really should de-alert, and you should watch the episode, and then if you feel like it, call your congressman or senator and talk about it. I was going to take you through everything that happens when STRATCOM, it used to be NORAD, but now STRATCOM, Strategic Command, detects a launch anywhere in the world, and how there is excruciating pressure every step of the way to make a decision, and that deciding to go to nuclear war under that kind of excruciating pressure is a real bad idea. I was going to go through it all, but then Taya explained it, and it was debated on screen. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks so much to the Norman Lear Foundation, to the Sentinel Award, and Hollywood Health and Society for everything you do, and for honoring our show and pushing us and other shows to get it right, because we certainly agree it really matters. Thanks so much. Oh, and what also matters is when your wife comes to see you get an award. You thank her. And I stopped referring to my little sheet. And she really does deserve to be thanked. And my son Casey, who's here, does too. And my daughter Becca, who couldn't make it. And my mother too. Because they put up with my neuroses about this crap. I'm really worried about this stuff. So thanks so much, everyone. Thank you. And thank you, Barbara, for saving me.
Thank you, Barbara, for saving the ride home. The idea that playing the president is difficult is these days sort of aspirational. Next award. According to the Centers for Disease Control, although African Americans are 12% of the US population, in 2016 they were 44% of HIV diagnoses. Studies show that African Americans are likely to get tested for HIV late in the course of the disease, and late testing results in missed opportunities for prevention and treatment. Often, a reason for late testing is stigma. In Chicago Med's episode, Mountains and Molehills, we see a patient with symptoms of HIV. She's a young woman from Ghana who refuses to take an HIV test due to the stigma that it carries. The hospital staff respect her feelings, but work together to help her understand the importance of testing and the many advances in HIV treatment. The amazing thing is that we know from our research and work with other shows that the days after episodes like this air, people come to free testing centers to get tested because of what they see on television. I'm delighted to present a Sentinel Award for the depiction of HIV/AIDS in a drama to Chicago Med. Here to accept the award are writers Stephen Hootstein and Meredith Friedman.
I'm reminded why I quit acting, because this is a terrifying thing, speaking in front of people. We want to begin by thanking the Norman Lear Center and Hollywood Health and Society for this honor. It's an organization that is tremendously helpful to our show, connecting us with experts in the field and helping ensure that we tell medical stories in a way that is accurate and realistic, except for the fact that at Chicago Med, we do get test results back in 5 minutes, often, and our MRI machine is always available. For this particular storyline, Stephen and I were interested in examining how a doctor responds when a patient refuses life-saving care. And I actually spoke to a friend of mine who's an infectious disease doctor when we were researching the story, and he told me that one of the most painful and frustrating experiences of his career was watching a young AIDS patient die. And not because they couldn't access antiretroviral therapy, not because of AIDS-related complication, but simply because they wouldn't adhere to treatment. They were afraid that if they started taking antiretroviral therapy, their family would discover their illness and shun them. Although tremendous progress has been made in the treatment of AIDS, it is still a highly stigmatized disease around the world. That's why it remains vital to see characters with HIV and AIDS portrayed on television. I believe that visibility is key to dispelling the misinformation and fear that breeds stigma. And lastly, I'd like to end by thanking my co-writer, Stephen Hootstein. This is actually my first episode of television that I ever wrote. Thank you. And I feel very lucky that despite Stephen looking like a very young man, he's a veteran in the field, and I got to learn how to write for TV from him. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank our showrunners who can't be here, Andrew Schneider and Diane Froloff, and some of our writers, Jeff Dreyer, Eli Talbert, Danny Weiss, Paul Puri, Sofia Fadevi, I'm forgetting some names, I apologize, Joe Souza. And then, of course, someone who really brought this episode to life, Paitha Merkerson, who plays our hospital administrator, Sharon Goodwin, who lost way too many friends and loved ones to this disease. And surprising when we started writing this how what I thought had been relegated to the past was all too present. So thank you.
To say that the topic of sexual assault is in the news is an understatement. These last weeks have reminded us of some of the dark realities of the life of a teenager. The Netflix drama 13 Reasons Why doesn't hold back when showing the difficulties of being a teen, from bullying to alcohol and drugs to sexual assault. In this year's winning episode, The Missing Page, Mr. Porter wrestles with what he could have said and done to save Hannah's life. Let's watch a clip. Well, here to accept the award is executive producer Joy Gorman-Weddles.
Thank you all so much. We're so honored to be here and so grateful. This show, like the book before it, became a controversial phenomenon, but it didn't start out that way. It started with a person with a microphone falling on myself, with a passionate group of artists who wanted to just make something that matters and tell authentic and often painful stories, some that reflect our own experiences, in an effort to reach teenagers and anyone who's ever been a teenager, and just make people feel like they're not alone. And there's been a lot of criticism and noise around the stories that we tell, so we can't tell you how much it means to us to be in a group like this and be honored by the Norman Lear Center and Hollywood Health and Society. So it makes us feel like we're succeeding in that original goal, and we're really grateful. Having researched and written and shot and discussed and defended so many episodes that were graphic and dark, when we were told you chose 209 as an accurate reflection of sexual assault, I first thought, oh, they must have meant episode 109, when Bryce assaults Jessica, and realizing that you guys chose an episode about believing a survivor. This episode where Mr. Porter imagines he can go back to the day that Hannah came to him and actually hear her and maybe save her life. And our culture does not encourage people who cause harm to take responsibility. It's apparent every day in today's news and in every high school that the person who's actually placed on trial so often is the survivor. Mr. Porter was too afraid to hear Hannah. He felt unequipped as a man to ask the right questions. It was too scary for him to reach across the table and get into the mess of a girl's trauma. But he was a good man, and he wished that he had the tools to listen to her and to talk to her. And in this episode, he imagines he can give her back that voice. He imagines he had a chance to believe a survivor of rape. So thank you all for making and supporting TV with a positive impact and for inviting us to the party. We will keep telling stories that make us all uncomfortable and force conversations between kids and parents and between all of us. And our great hope is that our show will encourage more people to believe survivors. So thank you.
Sometimes subtext is text. Thank you. One Day at a Time is one of Look at that. Is one of Netflix's most critically acclaimed comedies. It's a reboot of Norman Lear's 1975 show. So it's in its third season, shooting now. Norman Lear is 96 years old. If 96 is what Norman Lear at 96 is, then I'll have what he's having. This new show depicts a single Latina mother raising her kids with the help of her mom, Lydia, played by Rita Moreno. If you haven't seen the picture of Rita and Norman on the inside cover of your program, it's a keeper. In the episode titled Hello, Penelope, we see Penelope, played by Justina Machado, struggle with her depression after she decides to end therapy and stop taking her medication. Let's have a look. Here to present the award for One Day at a Time, I'm pleased to introduce Justina Machado.
I love Norman at the end. Love it. Okay. From season to season, One Day at a Time has continued to craft an authentic narrative around the mental health journey of my character, Penelope. Penelope has gone from denial to reluctant patient, then finally a willing participant in therapy who takes her medication regularly. A successful arc for Penelope, right? But our writers and showrunners didn't let the story end there, because sometimes, often, the battle for mental health isn't a linear path that ends in being cured. Feeling good does not mean cured. Feeling good is not impenetrable. Feeling good is not always triumph. Thank you, Mike Royce, Gloria Calderon-Kellett, and for this episode specifically, Michelle Badillo and Caroline Levitch. I'm gonna give them a hand because they're amazing. Thank you for turning a seemingly simple emotion like feeling good on its head. You've gone beyond the distinction of feel-good comedy and continue to lead audiences towards more complex understandings of sensitive issues, like mental health. Your honest writing and passion for authenticity have given us all a dose of the kind of balance we wish upon all the Penelopes watching. And by the way, this is the greatest job I've ever had in my life. I just have to say that again. And the greatest showrunners. I know we all say that, but I'm going to say that. It is this balance that makes you all more than deserving of this year's Sentinel Awards Outstanding Depiction of Mental Health. Congratulations and welcome to the stage, creators and EPs, Gloria Calderon-Kellett and Mike Royce, EP Brent Miller, and writers Michelle Badillo and Caroline Levitch.
I think my job as the non-writing executive producer tonight is to introduce the other non-writing executive producer looking over us. But before I do that, I would love to just take a moment and thank Justina Machado's mom, who's here tonight, for the gift of this brilliant actress. She is amazing.
Thank you.
Seriously. And then Norman, tonight, for those of you who've been here in years past, he usually comes every single year, but unfortunately, tonight he wasn't able to make it. Anyone from Boston in the room? So you may know that tomorrow, Emerson is going to unveil a statue of Norman. So he is there to accept that because that is his alumni, or as an alumni of Emerson, that's his school. And then also the mayor is going to present a key to him and call it the Norman Lear Day, October 4th, the city of Boston. So that's why he's not here, but I'll let him tell you what he feels about tonight's award.
Hi, I'm in New York and can't be there tonight. I'm so sorry I can't, because I would love to congratulate in person Mike Royce, Gloria Calderon Collette for their astounding episode featuring discussion of mental health, the issue of mental health, and to congratulate the Sentinel Awards and the center, which happens to be in my name, whose work I think is astounding. Have a good evening all.
I need some of those glasses that Justina has. All right. No, I'm good. Thank you so much to Hollywood Health and Society staff for recognizing Hello, Penelope. This title reflects our main character's journey in self-discovery. Penelope Alvarez is a veteran and mother dealing with her mental health and trying out various healthy coping mechanisms along the way. The topic of mental health is not something that is often spoken about in the Latino community, so it was very important as a Latina to be able to talk about this in a real way and show a strong, functioning woman who is having this issue and is not afraid to talk about it in therapy, and also not afraid to go through various paths towards her mental health. Her journey is including medication, but we have other veterans on the show who do not and have other coping mechanisms, so we felt it was important to also show various coping mechanisms because it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. And we really hope that it starts a conversation, not just in the Latinx community, but for women in general who definitely don't deal with self-care enough. And we've been so moved by all of the support we've gotten on Twitter from people who felt seen, who went back on medication or went back to therapy as a result of having seen this. And I think a lot of us are here because we do want people to feel less alone. And I think that that this episode is what we were aiming to do with that. So I want to give the microphone to the writers of this episode, Michelle and Caroline.
Oh, I'm too tall for this. Oh, okay, great. Hello. Michelle and I are so honored to be here tonight, and we're so thankful to Mike and Gloria for giving us the opportunity to write such an important episode tackling mental health, something that we talk about all the time and we think should be talked more about and on our screens more.
I just want to say that I hope that the experience of watching this episode was one of learning and healing, much like it was for Caroline and I when we wrote it, by which I mean that we both realized that we were depressed and went back to therapy. So thank you.
Okay. Launched in 1963. General Hospital is listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest running American soap opera in production. Man. Okay. This season, Sonny's father, Mike, who's played by Max Gale, is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is devastating to the individual who's diagnosed, but the family or other caregivers can also quickly become overwhelmed. Considering the needs of the whole person, not just the Alzheimer's patient, is critical. Let's take a look. Betty Davis said, "Growing old ain't for sissies," right? Here to present the Sentinel Award for General Hospital, I'm pleased to introduce Max Gale and Laura Wright.
Wow, those guys get me all weepy. You're so good. You're so amazing. I'm going to read because General Hospital has been on for 55 years, and I've only been on for 13, so there's a lot going on here. All right, General Hospital has never shied away from tackling difficult issues. In the 55 years we've been on, we've shared HIV/AIDS-related storylines, tolerance and understanding for gay, lesbian, and transgender people, bipolar disorder, breast cancer awareness, child abuse, organ donation, and now the subject of Alzheimer's disease, which affects an estimated 47 million people and is the 5th leading cause of death in those aged 65 or older. Wow. It is a subject that touches so many of us, and it has been an honor to portray this story with our audience.
So we're honored to present this award to our producer and fearless leader, Frank Valentini.
Thank you for recognizing General Hospital for this story, which is about the terrible costs and hard-won graces of a family struggling with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's affects millions, and we're only starting to understand what causes it, let alone what might cure it. Meanwhile, everyday families struggle with this horrendous disease. Our goal was to portray the struggle as accurately as possible, to educate our audience without lecturing them, so those who know Alzheimer's all too well would recognize themselves, and those who have not yet encountered it would learn something of value. Thanks to everyone who helped us tell this story, Vicky Dummer and Nathan Varney, who's here tonight from ABC, our writers Shelley Altman and Chris Van Etten, the GH directors, staff, and crew, and our deepest thanks to all of the actors, but especially Max Gale, Maurice Bernard, and Laura Wright. You broke our hearts every day. Thank you.
Abortion. Just thought I'd say that. No, it really is, I think, on the minds of many of us these days in terms of future policy. And, well, I don't know about your private lives, but it's on our minds, but it's still a very rare occurrence on entertainment television. Since the dawn of television, there have been only 87 abortion-related storylines on primetime TV since the beginning of TV. And many of those depictions have been inaccurate and over-dramatized. Some medical procedures on TV are shown to be much safer than they are in real life, CPR being one of them. But abortion is often portrayed as much riskier than it really is. Also, when abortion is addressed on TV, it's often melodramatic, emotional, fraught with indecision. In reality, women who get abortions are not conflicted and often feel a sense of relief afterwards. Tonight we're honoring 2 shows who've taken on the topic of abortion and done so with accuracy and sensitivity. In the Fox drama Empire, Becky reveals exactly how she feels about terminating her pregnancy in the episode Sweet Sorrow. Let's watch. And I'm happy to present the Sentinel Award to Empire, and here to accept is director, co-executive producer, and writer Eric Haywood and writer Jamie Rosengard.
Hello. Okay, this is not terrifying at all. So on behalf of the writing staff, the cast, and the crew of Empire, we would both like to thank the Norman Lear Center and the Hollywood Health and Society for tonight's tonight's award. Sorry, autocorrect. So in addition to co-writing this episode, it was also my network television directorial debut. So this happens to be, thank you. So this happens to be an episode that is very near and dear to my heart. So again, thank you for this recognition. Really quickly, from the beginning, it's always been a mandate at Empire that we tell more than just stories that are about the music industry. Our co-creators, Lee Daniels and Danny Strong, always intended that we tell stories that are socially relevant. We've tackled topics such as sexual orientation, homophobia, specifically in the hip-hop industry, mental health, substance abuse, and for this episode, we chose the topic of reproductive choice. And actually, before we even started writing it, I was approached by our showrunner, because we typically co-write every episode of Empire, and our showrunner asked me, who do you want to co-write this episode with? And without a second of hesitation, I said, give me Jamie. She is a rock star, so it is my additional honor to share this with her. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it was important for Eric and me, as well as the whole writing staff, that we show, in this episode, a strong, successful woman at the top of her career with a partner who would have been supportive of her having a child, making a choice to have an abortion, not out of desperation, but out of education, that this was the right choice for her at the right time, one that we've continued to show throughout the series as having been proven accurate. And at a time when this is on everyone's minds, when it's under assault, when not just women's right to choose, but even their own memories of their own bodies seems to constantly be under attack, we feel even more passionately about how we've depicted this, and I hope that we continue to see it on screen. So thank you.
Next up is Glow from Netflix. Woo! After a brief affair, Ruth realizes she's pregnant with her best friend's husband's baby. Okay, I didn't see there was no drama around abortion. From the start, she's clear about her decision to have an abortion. Her coach, Sam, played by Mark Maron, accompanies her to the clinic. Although there is some emotion, this episode demonstrates how routine a procedure an abortion can be. Here's a clip from the episode, Maybe It's All the Disco. I'm happy to present the Sentinel Award to Glow, and here to accept the award is co-executive producer Mark Burley and producer Leanne Moore.
You left your notes behind. Maybe I'll use them. They may be better than mine. Thank you to Hollywood Health and Society for this award and for putting us on right after the other abortion story. This belongs to Liz Flahive and Carly Mensch, who are our show creators. And they couldn't be here tonight. They're out of town. So they sent the old white guy. Because who knows better about what a woman should do with her uterus than an old white guy? I think the big takeaway from this story was that Ruth had the choice. We're set in the early 80s. This was 10 years after Roe versus Wade, and the choice was available. Now it's 30 years later. We're seeing the ability to make that choice chipped away at all over the country, and potentially, after this week, we may be in danger of losing it nationally. So I think that this is an important thing for people to be aware of. And I'm going to leave you with one last question you may have already heard this week. Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body? If your answer is no, you're probably qualified to be on the Supreme Court.
Now in its 15th season. 15, man. Grey's Anatomy is considered one of the greatest television shows of our time. The storyline we honor tonight explores the staggering rates of maternal mortality in the US and an innovation that just might help save lives. Here's a clip as it plays out over 4 episodes. Here to present the Sentinel Award to Grey's Anatomy, I'm happy to introduce cast member J.C. Elliott.
Hello, everyone. Wow, what an episode. All right, so I'm so honored to have been asked to give away this award, important award tonight. I've also been asked to share a little bit about being on this episode. I was lucky enough to be part of it, and what my experience of it was. I was first introduced to maternal mortality and the statistical rates in America, actually at the reading that we had of this episode. And I remember thinking that they must have exaggerated the drama for entertainment purposes. But as the story advanced, I learned more about the subject, and I found out about the data, and hyperbole aside, I discovered that women in America are 6 times more likely to die from maternal issues, and they're 6 times more likely to die than places in Europe, for example, or Scandinavian countries. I also learned that, I was reminded that the ability for a country to care for mothers and babies during maternity and pregnancy is the direct measure to which we can tell of a country's development. And yet, America is having a very hard problem with that, and it has the worst records in the development world. It makes me wonder why this happens and how we can remedy this problem. Enters screenwriters and the voice you are given. And this makes me incredibly proud to be working on a team that strives to make more than just entertainment, and who still, after 15 years, manages to use its big, immense platform to create change, to bring awareness, and to hopefully lead to research and social change. And so I am very, very pleased to present the Sentinel Award for Maternal Health in a Drama to Grey's Anatomy. And here to accept the award is executive producer, writer, and real-life doctor, Zoanne Clack.
Hello, good evening, everyone. This is going to seem weird, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Justina Machado, wherever you are. You were in one of my first episodes, well, you were in an early episode, season 3, where we got one of our first Sentinel episodes where you played a woman who had just had a baby and had breast cancer. So she led us to our first Sentinel Award. So lovely to see you again. So now more serious things. In every other country, in every other wealthy country, maternal mortality rates have been falling. In fact, in Great Britain, the rate has declined so dramatically that a man is more likely to die while his partner is pregnant than she is. But in the US, maternal deaths increased from 2000 to 2014, and nearly 60% of such deaths were preventable. These statements all came from an article that the writers were sent before last season started that told the story of an orthopedist and his healthy neonatal nurse wife going in to have their first baby at the hospital where they worked. The delivery was uneventful, the baby was healthy, but the healthy neonatal nurse mom was dead from a preventable cause just 24 hours later. The article went on to say that every year in the US, 700 to 900 women die from pregnancy or childbirth-related causes, which is, as JC said, the worst record in the developed world. American women are 3 times as likely as Canadian women and more than 6 times as likely, as she said, as Scandinavian women to die in the maternal period than any other wealthy country. Maternal mortality rates have been falling there. After initially being shocked and appalled, obviously, my doctor in public health background kind of kicked in, and I was like, wouldn't I know if this was happening? I mean, come on. Like JC said, like my first thing was, it's gotta be like some hyperbole, they're just trying to stir up some headlines in this article. So I went searching in medical journals and talking to OBs, I'm not an OB, and other physicians. Turns out, the perfectly normal process of childbirth has become one of America's most deadly public health concerns. Fortunately, I did not know this before giving birth to twins in 2014. Especially since African American mothers die at a rate of 3 to 4 times as much as white mothers. So, whew, we did this in 2017. They were healthy and I was too. So we knew that this was information that needed to be known and get out there. So we set out to find out why this was happening, what we could do, and used HH&S to talk to experts and find out what was being done about it. So our search led us to Dr. Elliot Main, who is with the California Maternal Quality Care Collaborative, who told us about the simple yet profoundly life-saving act of having a standard protocol, just like a Code Blue, that had standardized carts called the hemorrhage cart, and we showed it working in this episode 1419, after starting the maternal mortality storyline in episode 1410, when it spanned 4 or 5 episodes. And of course, we had to start it with a bit of drama. So if you know the show, we had a character, April, whose jilted fiance came in with a wife who had a baby and then died after she, of course, birthed the baby. So, you know, a little bit of drama, just started off there, gotta keep that. But this simple intervention has been used here in California and reduced the maternal mortality rate by 20% in hospitals that have used it. So in the control hospitals, they've only reduced their rate by like 1.5%. But if you use this cart, 20%. So we're hoping that our story has opened some eyes and at least started some conversation and at most saved some lives. This kind of story is my validation for being here, and I am proud and honored to accept this on behalf of the 5 writers of these episodes and the cast and the crew of Grey's Anatomy. Thank you.
Okay, last up, but not least, we honor Jane the Virgin. For a moving storyline about breast cancer. We follow Jane's mother, Xiomara, as she struggles with what it means to have breast cancer and the difficult decisions she faces. Let's take a look at a couple of clips from chapter 78 and chapter 80. Okay, I just have to say, come on, Justin Baldoni and that little outfit, come on, what is that? He'd be cute in anything, Sam and Sharon. Okay, I'm happy to introduce Keller Wertham, who's here from Jane the Virgin. He plays Esteban to present the award. So come on up.
Whew, still getting over that. In addition to playing an actor on the show Jane the Virgin, I also play a doctor in real life. As a physician, I often witness firsthand the anxiety, the fear, the devastation, and also the hope that surrounds so many diagnoses, especially those as life-threatening as breast cancer. Our health is what binds us all together because the flip side of it is our mortality. And in diagnoses like breast cancer, education and awareness save lives, and screening saves lives. So my colleagues, the writers on Jane the Virgin, for bringing this storyline and showing it to the world are quite literally lifesavers. So they have done a beautiful job at showing this diagnosis with compassion, with accuracy, a touch of humor, and bringing us all closer to this disease, to the women and men that suffer from it, and to our own collective humanity. I am proud to present the award, the Sentinel Award for Breast Cancer in a Comedy to Jane the Virgin. Here to accept that award are executive producer Micah Schrapp and consulting producer Valentina Garza.
Last award of the night. That means I can talk as long as I want, right? Thank you, Hollywood Health and Society, for this acknowledgement. We'd also love to thank Jenny Snyder-Ehrman, who is our showrunner and unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, for giving us the opportunity to tell not only this story, but this entire breast cancer arc with what was sometimes a brutal honesty, and for not shying away or rushing through all of the uncomfortable moments. We also want to thank Gina Rodriguez, Andrea Novato, Jaime Camila, and our entire incredible cast for all of their vulnerability and inspiration in bringing this story to life. As a breast cancer survivor, this was not just another script or story arc to me. It meant pouring my heart and my pain onto the page and being willing to expose and bear my scars before my fellow writers on a daily basis. And I'm truly grateful to be working in a room full of such kind and caring individuals, one of whom is standing here next to me, my co-writer, Micah Schrapp, who also happened to direct one of these episodes. But despite my very public journey collaborating on this story arc, I know that surviving breast cancer is a difficult and lonely road. So as grateful as I am for this award, my greatest satisfaction would be in knowing that there are women out there battling breast cancer who've watched this show and known that they are seen. We acknowledge their truth and their struggle and their pain, and we speak hope into it. We dedicate this episode to them, and sadly, Mike and I have both survived losing people we love to cancer, so we also dedicate this award to every soul that has left us and say that we hold them in our hearts. Thank you.
I just want to add something real quick, which is that what the clip didn't show is that the episodes really dealt with this, with breast cancer in a heartbreaking way, but also a hilarious way, because our show is a comedy, and it's hard to tell sad stories and find the funny in them. And it's really a testament to Valentina, and this is really her story, this is really her award, these are really her episodes, and it's her bravery and her courage and her honesty and her candor. In the room, we laughed a lot and we cried a lot, and I'm grateful to her and to our showrunner, and thank you for this award.
So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to do something, but before then, I'm going to ask some of you to do something, which is that outside there is a step and repeat and a photographer, and if you who have awards would go out there, have your pictures taken with your entire teams, your mother, and whoever in the car that you didn't thank. Please have your photos. There's also a photo booth with props. There's a night ahead of you for those who are not waiting for your pillows. But the thing I really want to ask you is, because now you have seen, you have heard, you've watched, you've experienced, please join me in congratulating all of the winners tonight. Thank you so much for being here. See you next year.